It's Saturday, the 3rd of January, 2010, UK time, and some hours earlier, the US went into Caracas, bombed Caracas, and left with Maduro and his wife.
Mhm.
What is going on, Tom?
Hi, Rich. So everybody understands that I'm on the road and I don't use a phone holder. So I'm not that narcissistic that everybody needs to look at my friggin' ugly mug while I drive. So we're doing the thing today from on the road on some undisclosed location on I-75 in America. Yeah, no, what was going on is exactly the end game of everything we talked about. I think EM Burlingame, Halsey and I were on with Tommy Kerrigan yesterday. It was really interesting. Like literally, we were talking about all this yesterday, and then 12 hours later, Trump's like, "Yeah, we're capturing the flag. It's over." That's really what it comes down to. Is like, look, this whole Venezuelan operation, like so many of the things that we've been talking about, and so many angles on it, and everybody has an angle on Venezuela. The truth is, I think everybody's angle is partially correct, and then it's all of those things all wrapped up into one. So, what am I talking about? I'm talking about Chinese offtake of sludgy, heavy, sour Venezuelan oil that they were probably using. This is the one you haven't heard yet. I was talking with Dexter White about this morning. About taking that and building a strategic petroleum war reserve for ship fuel. That's pretty much all that oil is actually good for. It's good for number 6 bunker fuel, number 5 fuel oil. It's good for that. You can't really refine it to make gasoline. There's no light ends in it. So, if you think of Venezuela that way, and then you add in some of my speculation about, well, maybe they're also shipping silver and gold concentrates or copper concentrates or whatever in other parts of the ship. So like, this is a big deal. Venezuela is the crossroads of like 5 or 6 different stories in the Western Hemisphere, and we just decapitated all of them.
Okay, let's run through what the others might be, because there's stuff
Sure.
about election, the Dominion machines, how they came out of Venezuela and was used by the
Yep.
Democrats to rig the 2020 elections and who knows how many other elections. And so
Right.
Trump, by doing this, is cleaning up the US's the America's electoral system, but also the electoral system in other nations as well that have relied upon Dominion machines.
Agreed.
Then the drugs, the human trafficking, the illegal immigrants, and all the money flows that come from that flow through the city of London.
And flow into the Middle East.
And flow to the Middle East, right. For Iran, for Hezbollah.
Right.
Okay.
Let me unpack that one real quick, because Halsey English did a really good job of bringing this idea up yesterday. That the thing for that Venezuela was doing was like, it's like money flow east and west, cash that is necessary to get into the hands of Hezbollah, Hamas, the IRGC, and whatnot, because they need cash to do their operations. Well, if they don't have cash anymore, then look at what's happening in Iran at the same time that this is happening. Like, now we're talking about a country also starved of money. They need cash. They can't get it. Like, it's a really important side of this story that you're now defanging what's left of the axis of resistance, as the Amp would put it, the Devil's Legions, the Praetorians, in that area of the world as well as cutting off flows into Cuba. And so I was talking to somebody else this morning, and we were chatting with him. And he's got people that are people on the ground in Cuba, friends and family that have people on the ground in Cuba. Cuba's imploding. The electricity is barely functioning on a regular basis. There's disease is now rampant, and a variety of other things like that nobody's talking about, because they can't get access to medical. They can't get access to things anymore. The U.S. is going to make it worse in order to make it better. So I would expect at this point, Cuba, for example, could easily collapse in the next 60 to 90 days. I know that EM, Halsey, and I speculated yesterday about what was going on in Iran, as to who's backing that, and there's any number of arguments as to what could go there. But I don't want to. We'll get into that in a minute. But the drug trade, yes. The gold and silver trade, the precious metals and industrial metals trade coming out of the Central and South America and then exiting towards the Swiss refiners and up in the city of London to support that trade. I think the show that you did with EM last night about silver was incredibly illuminating, and I think everybody should watch that one as well. All of this is like tied up in Venezuela. It really is, and now Maduro is
Okay. Let me push back
off the
a little
table.
bit. Let
Sure.
me push back a little bit, Tom. And you know that I have the utmost respect for your perspectives. Don't always agree, but I'm always willing to listen and consider. And I've learned a lot from you, right? And I know I've been affected by this because I've had my cousin saying, listen, come on, he's just like the rest, right? And it looks like that because Bush did this with Noriega. They indicted Noriega and then went in and arrested him and took him back and convicted him. And now, Maduro was indicted in March 2020 in Trump's first term. So they've now gone in, they have kidnapped the sovereign leader of another country. That's an act of war.
Well, again, Trump is basically saying, look, we have an indictment against this guy. It's legal under our system. And if Venezuela wants to go to war with us, they're welcome to. This is no different than what Putin did in Ukraine. At the end of the day, this is an act of war, but it's been an act of war. But there's been acts of war going on all over the world. What I said yesterday morning on Twitter, I think is the most salient argument here to push back on that, which is that all these people clutching their pearls about the definition of war. I even pushed back on Dexter White at the outset of the Russia-Ukraine conflict by saying, look, that's been a war for years. The only difference is that we get to call it a war when a state army moves across an arbitrary political border. What about the people on the ground? The real argument here is that non-state actors don't respect the borders. In fact, they use and the people who back them use the legal frameworks, the international frameworks, to their advantage in order to, protect themselves and hide under the skirts of the local national leaders. This is my argument about Maduro, because I don't even consider him, the bad guy here. I consider him the puppet and the scapegoat. No, and the same way that I've been, now beginning to at least consider people like Ayatollah Khamenei in Iran and others. And you have to look at it that war is the default position, but it's not state-sanctioned armies crossing political borders. It's non-state actors disregarding political borders, and then having and then everybody clutching their pearls when a state actor finally says, "That's enough. You guys can't play this friggin' game anymore. That you're not actually at war with us." This is that real weird moment where you can very easily make the argument that governments are moving armies in order to bring about peace. And I know that the standard kind of anti-war libertarian perspective on this is that nothing government ever does is any good. And I'm a big fan of saying, and I have said many times, governments are good at doing two things: killing people and creating black markets. But at the same time, there are moments when things have gotten so lawless, so out of control, that's when the only people who can act with any degree of, I don't know, I'm not even sure what a moral authority is, to say that's enough. You guys are killing 70,000 or 80,000 of our people every year with fentanyl. We're doing this. We're trafficking children, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, somebody has to do something about this. And this is where I have made my peace with even the remnants of my own libertarianism, to say, look, these people are arresting me every day. I pay 70% of every dollar I make in friggin' some form of tax and some form of interest payment to some fucking foreign oligarch. Fuck them. If you guys arrest me every day, as far as I'm concerned, they're all mass murderers. They should be shot. But I can't say that, and I can't feel that. No, I can feel it, but I can't say it with any degree of. But that's what we're all feeling. We all know it. You personally, Rich, right? You think about it. What has been your cause célèbre, which is a phenomenal one? Stop paying taxes to support war and do so legally and everything else. It's a brilliant thing. It's a beautiful piece of of civic action, of ungovernable civic action. And but sometimes it's not enough. And sometimes you just need to go in and deal with the problem, because that foundation, that illegal foundation that exists underneath and under the skirts of the national leader, the figurehead, is what your real target is. And we have to be willing to, I don't have to say make our peace with it, but once we understand it, because we kind of all do, viscerally understand it, because we all interface with state, local, and federal, no matter where we are, governmental corruption and, organized crime and all the rest of it. It's endemic. It's everywhere. And at a certain point, it's time to say enough is enough. And if Trump wants to be the guy to go in and say, yeah, I'm the bad guy, what are you going to do about it? Yeah. It's the same thing that Putin's done. So that would be my counter.
Okay.
Here. And one last point, because it's very important. Bush versus Noriega. That was the Bush clan protecting their own drug trade against Noriega. This is finally, this is a big shot across the bow to the Bush clan, who are very, very much involved in the drug trade in Venezuela as it is trafficked into Florida. There are some very, very, very angry on one side and happy people on the other in Florida today because of this action. The Venezuelans, the Haitians, the Cubans, the Colombians, they're all cheering this on because they know what this means. And the Bushes are screaming.
Okay, now let me make a few points. First off, thank you for referring to notaxforwar.com.
Of course.
That's for people in the UK legally, lawfully, peacefully withhold taxes as a protest against war. Then one of the things that I've wondered about, and I'm going to say this carefully because you know which country I reside in, one of the things I've been thinking about is, what if Trump were to have done this with the nominal figurehead of the government here? Would I be upset?
Yeah, I don't know.
Something to think about. Then to make sure that I've understood your argument, right, what you're saying.
Hold on. The one thing is, if he did so, Rich, it would be to extract you and Alex Mercouris and a few other people out of occupied territory and bring it back across the DMZ. So go ahead.
Okay, well, I don't think I'd be too upset with that, right? Okay.
I've been trying to convince you of this for years, my friend. So
listen, yes. Anyway, moving on. What you're saying is, we're in a world now where, and maybe it's always been the case, that it isn't just states that wage war, but there are non-state actors. So I could, for an example, I could say George Soros's Open Society is waging war against Western nations, Canada, the European Union, UK, Australia, New Zealand, with its open borders, by using mass migration as a weapon of war against those territories, but also by depriving those nations that they came from of the most productive sectors of society.
I agree.
Now,
that's one.
That's an example, right?
And then we have the Somali angle in Minnesota, where they bring over the most adept grifters to try and figure out how much money they can steal and launder off to the Democrats, so that they can hand it off to George Soros to keep doing the exact same thing all across the United States and the rest of the world. And American taxpayers should be unbelievably outraged by it. But go ahead.
And also send some of that money back to Mogadishu, which is growing like crazy, despite the fact that it is a broken state in so many ways.
Yep.
Okay, so then people like myself are stuck in this paradigm where war is between states, and that we oppose war between states, and it doesn't allow us to recognize non-state actors like Maduro, like the drug cartels, and we forgot to mention on the list the CIA and the intelligence community that are heavily involved in the drug trade and the human trafficking in South America, and also the city of London that profits from it all. Must mention that as well. And just so you know, Tom, I'm going to have these on a list when people see this video, right? As well as a picture of you, Tom, so they remember who you are and they don't forget, right? Now, so then I need to upgrade my perspective on the world to take into account these changes. Now, that makes sense to me. And I was actually thinking about that because there was a certain medical intervention. We've got to be careful about the YouTube censors. There was a certain medical intervention, and many people thought that it was the same as the sort of regular vaccines that are available. And I didn't have that medical intervention, as you know, but you may not know, about 2-3 years ago, I had yellow fever vaccine because I was going to Sierra Leone and I had to have
Yes.
that. And the two are not the same. The yellow fever vaccine and that new medical intervention, that's really, really different. And people got to upgrade the paradigm with which they regard those sorts of medical interventions.
I agree.
So, and then also, I suppose there's the way that I, as traditional British lefty, regard American presidents. That I grew up with Reagan and Clinton and the Bushes and Obama and then Biden, God forbid, oh my God, how I regard them. That somehow Trump isn't of the same mold, even though it might look like it in some respects if I put on those same spectacles. Is that the argument that you're making?
It is in many ways. Like, the rules really have changed under Trump. Trump is not the same thing. And I think he has every, and this is the hard part maybe for a lot of people. Look, I get everybody's apathy and I get everybody's cynicism. I used to be one of those people. I'm not going to argue. Like, it took me like the entire 2016 campaign cycle to finally agree to go on election day and pull the lever for Donald Trump. I mean, I hadn't made the decision until, like, I don't know, Sunday night.
I remember.
Before the election. Yeah, I was absolutely refused. And because it was like, hey, like, don't vote. I encouraged them. And so, yeah, I don't vote because I don't like to encourage them. But it became very obvious that, Trump's heart is in the right place. It's, what he didn't know in 2016, 2017 was how Washington actually worked. And I've said this before, and I'll remind everybody that, there was a point very early on in Trump's first term where he said, I think things are bad up here, but God, they're 10 times worse than I thought, or something like that. They're much, much worse than they thought. And that meant that in many ways, the first Trump administration was doomed before it even began, right? But what he did get done was to help expose a lot of, the rot. Now, what we've done together, and what we've all done over the last 8 or 9 years, is to realize, wow, okay, hold on. The world we always thought we knew, and the way it was presented to us by the establishment media, and even some aspects of the alternative media, who are just as, frankly, they're just extensions of the mainstream media. And the deeper we go into this, the closer we get to the event horizon of actually truly flipping the script on this. We get to find out that there even more of them are, just extensions of the mainstream media. That now we have to flip our entire model and conception of how the world operates on its head. And once you do that, then you can see how and why Trump is different. Okay, it comes down to that idea that, and it's the stuff that Susan Kokinda and Barbara Boyd talk about at Promethean Action. It's the historical perspective that a guy like Matt Ehret brings, and as well as Alex Grainer brings, much more so than I do. And then there's the high level strategic, stuff that myself, Ian Burlingame, and others do. Like, when you put all that together, you begin to get this worldview and this model that becomes far more predictive, right, than the one that we were spoon fed and we've been operating under in the past. And and in some ways, a lot of us came through the anti-war movement, either from the left or from the right. In my case, it was from the right. But the problem with all of this, and I've also said this before, is that you have to believe in something. You can't just be against the thing that exists. You can't just be anti-American imperialism because the U.S. is the current dominant empire. You have to be against imperialism. Like, too many things that many of the problems that I've watched happen over the course of the 10 years almost 9 years that you and I have been doing, almost 10 years that you and I've known each other, right, is watching people who share a lot of your worldview But then when it gets down to a particular thing, that's when you find their, and I'm going to tell you what the specific thing is in a second. Is when you find they refuse to go with you on that, you're like, but that's a nonsensical position. That's cognitive dissonance. And in this case, it's American imperialism, right? So we watch so many people now, who just hate American imperialism, but they're okay with BRICS imperialism. They're okay with European imperialism. They're okay with other forms of imperialism, be it Russia or China or whatever. And I'm like, no, imperialism as a thing is empirically bad. And, this is where we have to be epistemologically consistent. We have to be, we have to know what we believe and then know how we're going to bring that into the world. And it's like, I have to have a partner who is very Aristotelian. Like, you have to have an ethos in order to have a telos, right?
Yeah.
And I had to be taught this, beaten it into my head 1,000 times until I finally began to see it. And this is where we are. There's a lot of people out there who have ethoses that are flawed. And some of us don't even have an ethos because we don't know what the hell we're abreacting against. We just know we're angry because we're getting looted, right? And that's fine, and that's fair. I don't. That's not a criticism or a judgment. That's an observation. That's actually a statement of sympathy. I get it. Because I used to be one of those people, and I spent most of my life now, most of my adult life, trying to, make sense of all this crap. But it's really quite simple, folks. The British Empire never ended. They control the money flows. And because they control the money flows, they control the politics and the organized crime and everything else. And that's what has to start. And that is what we're stripping away layer by layer by layer. And when you can understand that, the framework of that model, then you can understand, then you can literally say, I never really thought Donald Trump had it in him. I never really did. How many times have you heard me say, I never thought Trump understood this thing at this level, this problem at this level. I never would have guessed he was that guy. But guess what? It turns out that he's that guy.
Yep. And Tom, what you're saying at the end is really, really important. I'm actually going to be recording a video in a few weeks' time. I haven't quite worked it out with retired General Blaine Holt, second in command for the US contingent to NATO at one point, and also Harley Schlanger from Lyndon LaRouche, who's he's got a real insight into the machinations of the US government.
Right.
I found out that he actually ran for Senate many, many years ago.
No, bringing the head of the LaRouche organization and the former brigadier general at NATO together for a podcast, we're in a different freaking world, dude. Like, we are not in Kansas anymore, folks.
We're not. I'm going to come back to that in a second, right? Because I'm also going to. Blaine Holt has also agreed to do one with the peace campaigner Chris Coverdale, who came up with notaxforwar.com process. So.
I'm loving every second of this. Like, this podcast just gets better and better. So,
all right. Now, what you said at the end points to something that I've been thinking about, and I'm not asking you to answer this, but everybody who's listening and watching, just think about this, because I've been thinking about this, and I don't have much in the way of an answer. And maybe Trump is doing this. Maybe he's worked out the answer, him and his team. Supposing I was the president of the United States by some magical miracle, and I want a world where I want the United States to have the American system of political economy in place, and I want it available for other nations that want it, so I can trade with them as sovereign states. And I want an end to the globalist rule and an end to the grip that the City of London has had on geopolitics since the 1700s. And I want to make sure, and I want peace between Israelis and Palestinians and Rwandans and Congolese all over the world. I want peace instead of the British shit stirring everywhere. And I want to put it in such a way, one, that I survive to see this project through, and it's got to happen in my term, and two, that it prevails so that when somebody comes after me, they can't undo it. Because they killed JFK, they killed Lincoln, they killed McKinley, they probably wanted to kill Trump. They certainly didn't want him in power, as evidenced by Russiagate. So how would I do this? What would I need to do? And when would I need to do this? And that's going to be the inquiry that I'm going to have with Blaine and Harley. So it's just because, and then it deals with, it deals with the sort of quick solutions that people want. I want a two-state solution now. I want peace now. I want the elections cleared up now. I want arrests now. No, because it ain't. It's
What are
too
you, 3?
complicated for that.
What are you, 3? That's my answer to those people is, what are you, 4? Like, sorry, but it is. It's like I've said multiple times. Like, I think I said it the other day. I'm like, the unquenchable envy of Marxism is, they hate what you have simply because you have it. It's like a 2-year-old. Like, you watch 2-year-olds and their mirror neurons and all of that, and you watch them with their older siblings. And I'm getting to watch this now because where we are in Tennessee, we're next to a young family with 4 children, and I'm watching the kids. And the kid could have absolutely zero interest in the thing until his brother picks it up. The minute his brother picks it up, he wants it.
Yeah.
Why? Because his brother has it. And the minute he gets it, when his brother gives it to him, he doesn't give a shit about it anymore. And he drops it on the ground and moves on to the next thing that he wants. Marxism is literally the political ideology of 2-year-olds. And it's why the envy is unquenchable, because at the center of their being, there is nothing there. There is no ethos there. There is no there. I hate to quote Gertrude Stein, but Jesus Christ, she was right about that. There is no there. Now, she was talking about Oakland, but whatever. The point is that you have to have a thing you believe in. You can't just be against the thing that's out there or just want the thing that someone else has. You have to know what it is, know who you are, why you exist, and and then what you want grows out of that. It's not just a thing that's out there in the world. It's why I always recommend Babylon 5 to people. It's like, the Vorlons in the shadows ask 2 different questions. One asks, who are you? And the other one asks, what do you want?
Right.
And, whoever answers the question, what do you want? And they can answer it definitively. That's the person you can make into their agent. And that's what they do to Lando Malari. And that's what sets everything in motion. And that's literally the catalyst for the entire story in that we watch. And it's a brilliant exposition of human psychology in that respect as well. So,
okay,
we're in a weird place here where we are uncovering a lot of our actual motivations, our actual our perceptions of what it is we think we want, why we want them, and how that interfaces with how we adjudicate and assess geopolitical events.
Okay. Going back to this geopolitical event, then.
Sure.
I listened to Trump's conference today. I probably didn't listen to it too carefully, but
I didn't get a chance. So I
can't comment on it, right? But he did say that we're gonna take care of Venezuela until somebody else is installed that we're happy with. But that's a regime change operation. I mean, when he said that, I was thinking about what the Americans did with Mossadegh, replacing them with the Shah Pahlavi. I thought about that and how how these hegemons have replaced other governments with their own puppets. So I thought this sounds like that. And then he also says that the oil is going to be used for the United States or something. We're gonna have he said American oil companies are going to go in,
right?
Which is more of I suppose like what the globalists have been doing, sending in their companies to asset strip.
Right.
Now, somebody in your Slack group just actually commented, replied to something I posted in there. And if Trump said this, I missed this. I'm not saying that he didn't say this, right? I must have missed it. That he says that the oil is going to be used, the profits are going to be a dividend for the Venezuelan people.
There you go.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that would be great. That would be really great. That would upend a lot of people.
Right. That would upend a lot of, right. No, you're exactly right. I think that's what he's going to do. I don't think that, we don't need the profits from the oil trade involved from Venezuela. Venezuela, if you want to go back and answer your own question from earlier, how do you do this in such a way that is durable? Well, you actually help Venezuelans deploy Venezuelan assets to build Venezuela. So why wouldn't you, if you're Trump, building Venezuela into a state back into a society that is rich and prosperous means we never has to deal with the collapse state model that can be used as a petri dish and as a base of operations for that non-state war that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
So so that's what we should be watching to see if it plays out. Now, but we all want to indulge in cynicism and and spew that cynicism all over Twitter, or the podcast space. Be my guest, but I caution everybody to do that at this point in time. I really do. I'm telling everyone, don't make that your reflex action. It may get you clicks in the short term, but I'm telling you, you were wrong about every fucking thing else in this thing by reacting. Like, has he done this in the Middle East? No, he's created a framework and a foundation. Yeah, the United States is going to make some money off of helping to rebuild the Middle East, but everybody else is as well, because everybody else has got buy-in. All the countries are buying into the peace plan for Gaza. Everybody wants that to succeed. Israel's now free to cut weapons development deals and investment deals and tech deals with all of the members with all their Arab neighbors, and that's going to de-escalate, and lower the paranoia on everybody's side.
Yeah,
if everybody's doing work together.
You referenced boots on the ground earlier. Can you just sort of button this up? Do you envision the U.S. military having a presence in Venezuela as the U.S. runs that country?
No, we're going to have a presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil, because we have to have, we're sending our expertise in. So you may need something, not very much. But no, we're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground. And that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country. So I want to thank you all very much. Thank you.
Now, if he were to do that, one of the things that it would do, it would strengthen Venezuela. If he weren't to do that, it would weaken the nation because there'd be conflict. And then that would create a greater likelihood of displaced persons who would then want to travel north into the United States.
Yeah, he's not solving anything at that point.
Right, and it points to something Susan Kokinder said when me and her recorded. She said what Trump wants and what he's setting up, he wants Venezuela to be strong and sovereign by itself.
Yes.
Because then that stops the mass migration.
Yes. Yes. Okay. And then once you do Venezuela, now you do Colombia, and now Peru, and now Ecuador, and now everybody else. And we're watching parts of we've already watched parts of South America, Central and South America, flip, quote unquote, hard right or populist right. Well, guess what? Those are the places that you encourage. Like, that's why he brings Bukele in El Salvador. That's why we watch these things happen, and then you go and you fix other problems. Like solving Venezuela on its own is going to help solve Colombia, right?
Okay.
Like, again, and so I want to bring this back to you. This is also a means by which to clean up the graft and the corruption and the rogue status of American oligarchs and American institutions like the Bush family, like the CIA, right? All of those things, they've been dealt a massive blow here today. So, just to look at it from the quote unquote regime change portion of this regime change that's pointless and incremental and kind of point sparring based thing that Halsey and EM and I talked about yesterday on Tommy Harrigan's podcast. This whole like point for point escalatory ladder, the kind of it's the kind of geopolitics everybody's used to. Well, I scored a little bit of a point on you here, so then I have to score a little bit of a point on you there, and I go here, and then you go there, and then and it's this very British mid game sort of thing where you just try and tie everybody up into these little friggin' Gordian knots that you can't unwind. And Trump just walks in with a big fucking cleaver with the word Gordian Slayer on it and starts whacking all these things over the head, and then saying, "I dare you to prove me wrong." Like, he's literally just calling everybody's bluff. and going, okay, are you going to stand up to the U.S. military here? You really think you can stop Delta Force here? No, feeling progress with that? Take that leap. That's great. But I got 5 people inside your palace, Maduro, who work for me now and have worked for me because we flipped them 3 months ago. So this operation didn't happen last night. This operation has been building probably all through 2025 on the down low, while Trump's out there bloviating about tariffs or making fun of Marjorie Taylor drama queen or doing what he does, which is draw all the fire, be the big distraction, let everybody know where things are going, and then very strategically. And I'll be honest with you. I had a conversation this morning with Dexter White. I've been talking to him about Trump for 10 years, going on a decade now. This was literally a decade because we first had our first conversations about Trump very early in the campaign during the primary season about Trump. And I was shocked to hear him finally say, I guess I was wrong. Trump's got a bigger head for this stuff than I thought he did. I really did not think he had it. And he and I have been talking, like I said, we've talked about this many times. We've had many intense conversations about it. He and I will probably do a podcast about this on my channel at some point in the near future, because this is a big moment. And it's great to see, somebody, isn't it great? I'm going to put it this way. Isn't it great to see somebody exceed your expectations?
Yes. Yes.
Isn't that nice? Doesn't that feel good?
It's
Isn't
really
that
good.
isn't that like the best New Year's present you could ever ask for? And you don't usually give presents on New Year's, but hey, Trump just gave us one.
Yes.
And that's the way you have to look at it, folks.
Well, just on that, I'm going to share something from my work.
Sure.
As a fractal of what Trump is doing, perhaps.
Sure.
So I worked with this mum and separate from the dad, 4 kids, and it looked like to many people that the dad was the perpetrator of domestic abuse, that he was coercive and controlling.
Mm.
And then I went in, and then I'm looking at it fresh. And I very quickly established by digging, going beyond the surface, that who was actually exercising coercive control in an incredibly devious, manipulative, difficult to see manner was the mother. And actually, I would say, in 14 years of social work, this was the most devious abuser I've ever come across.
Wow.
And it was such that whenever I had to go and visit the home, I had to have another social worker with me, not because she was violent, no, but she was smart, and she would use whatever she could to undermine a single social worker. So I had to have a witness with me.
Right.
And the previous social workers that had worked with this family were all women, and I come in as a male social worker, different energy, different way of operating, and I disrupt things and I shake things up. And I did some really, really great quality social work because the children were so damaged, so stunted in their development by what this mother had done to them and to the husband. And actually what happened, Tom, is it became too dangerous for me to continue working with her.
Wow.
And my manager pulled me off and replaced me with herself. It was just too dangerous for me professionally.
Right.
And then and I'm using that as a fractal for what Trump is doing, for what JFK tried to do, for what Lincoln and McKinley tried to do. And Trump knows about these guys, these presidents before him that the City of London destroyed. This incredibly devious, manipulative mechanism for enriching themselves at the expense of everybody else on this planet. How on earth do you defeat that enemy and still prevail?
You know where their pain points are, and that was what came out of that conversation I had with Dexter this morning about Trump. He said the one thing that he has, and he's always acknowledged, is that Trump has a preternatural ability. It's deep in his, this is instinctual for him, of knowing where everybody's pain point is. He's incredibly good at it. And it could be, it's a manifestation of his childhood PTSD, living with his dad, who was a apparently a tyrant, and yada. We can sit there and do a psychological evaluation on Donald Trump or whatever. That's not important. What's important here is that Trump became what he is, and then mastered that and turned it to his advantage.
Yep.
And
I have heard it said by people who've met him that he's really, really good at sizing people up.
Yeah,
Really good at sizing people up.
Yeah, he is. And I hesitate, or what do you call, quake at the idea of actually meeting Trump for that reason.
Apparently, he's really personable. He's really personable.
No. Yeah, I know. I understand. Well, obviously, that's part of his charm about figuring out how finding out where everybody's pain point is and everything else. But my dad was one of these guys too. My dad was incredibly good at sniffing out people's motivations. Unbelievably good at it. He's a good cop, and he survived 24 years on the streets of New York City. Because of it. So I learned. I've learned. It's called. Part of this is like hypervigilance, right? From that perspective, and you got to realize that at some point, I remember having a conversation recently again with both Camille and kind of a long form conversation behind the scenes between my wife and Camille and I and Dexter and other people, and we finally just came to Camille just looked at me and she said, "Tom, you've taken hypervigilance and you've turned it into a superpower. It's why you're so good at being able to figure out and instinctually know when these people are when it's off, and it's part of your oeuvre, as it were. That's a term that every time I say it, I can't help but smirk because it's such a ridiculous French word, oeuvre. But whatever. So can't say it without sarcasm.
In my professional opinion, as someone who's been assessing you for these past 9-10 years. You do have this preternatural ability to read the ruins at a macro level. And what I often say to people, because I don't present your arguments as well as you do.
Right.
So listen, I've learned to listen to, at the very least, listen to Tom, because often what he says, usually I found it works out that way because you can see things in how it's being played on the macro level in a way that I can't. Now, how then does Russia and China play into this, and how does this play into the creation of ARC? Or is it that they've done some sort of agreement that this part, the Americas, is mine, or they're all going to destroy the city of London, or both?
Well, they are, but in different ways. Remember, part of my argument about ARC. Now, ARC, I do not consider to be any kind of alliance here. Let's not get crazy, okay?
Right.
What ARC is an understanding that America, Russia, China are the three areas of the world that should be counterbalancing each other with vague hostility. Okay? Vague, not kinetic hostility. Okay? But with wariness and hostility and, cooperation where possible. Right? This is to say they're all sovereign, they all have their own interests, and they respect those interests. And of course, they're going to push at each other's boundaries, and they're going to try and figure things out from there. Now, with that being said, China was making a lot of moves in Central and South America to secure commodity supply chains. Excuse me, oil, copper, silver, all of that stuff, right? As well as put their people in, use it as a means by which use Venezuela as a base of operations to move Chinese agents into the United States along the same vectors that the cartels were moving in, that Soros was moving people across the Texas border, blah, 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 blah. It's all, you got to think that that's all the same thing, right? What Trump is saying here is that, look, the riches of North America are for North America, with the United States as the people that are the guarantors of that. And we're the leading power. Y'all get the hell out. And the vestiges of the Soviets having to play the British game of the Cold War. You make this move here, so I make this move there. You make that move here, well, I'm going to make that move there. Blah, this move, counter move, and then eventually tying the board up in this, Gordian knot of the British mid game, if you're using the chess parlance, right? That's all going away. And there's a lot of pieces on that table where, there's a lot of cleanup to do on that table. So Russia's influence in Cuba, for example, China's, controlling the Panama Canal, blah, 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 blah. All these things have to be unwound. They're not going to happen today. They're not going to happen tomorrow. We're going to have days like today where big things happen, but for nothing's going to happen for months on end. And then, a big thing happens, right? Meaning China, go back to Asia, where you belong. Get out of get the hell out of our galaxy, to quote John Sheridan again from Babylon 5. Same thing with City of London, same thing with the French, same thing with the Portuguese. Bye, go away. No, you have no power here anymore. The old powers don't matter. And we're not beholden to you anymore, and we don't consider ourselves your children anymore. We can stand on our own 2 feet. Thank you very much. Same thing so that you look at it that way, but at the same time, we have common interests in, again, going back to the argument about, let's get rid of London's influence and letting London kind of tell everybody, well, we're going to get rid of Trump, and then you're going to have to deal with us, resurgent. So it's really us versus you and them, and then they get to play everybody against each other and do the triangulation game. And Trump doesn't play the triangulation game.
No.
Every time somebody tries to play the triangulation game, so does that make him a narcissist? No, it doesn't. And it absolutely doesn't make him a narcissist, because that's all narcissists do, is play the triangulation game. No. He's actually an anti-narcissist at that point. He may be vain, right? Okay. He may be orange, okay, but that doesn't make him a narcissist. Like, those are different things. Being vain is one thing. Being shallow is one thing, and being cheesy and having poor taste, having putting gold leaf on everything is not necessarily good taste. But that doesn't make him a narcissist.
Sure.
Just a very important point.
And as a president, as a leader, he's a maverick. And then the mistake I think people make is by judging him by others like that. Like, for example, Elvis was a maverick. This young, handsome, white boy singing like an African American.
That's right.
He's breaking the rules there. Muhammad Ali is breaking the rules, and people would judge Muhammad Ali from what they've known before. So here's Trump coming along, breaking the rules, which he has to do in order to defeat the international banking cartel, which is spawned out of the City of London.
Well, you can't play by their rules when their rules-based order is all based on
it favors them,
and it favors them. They set the game board up. If you want to beat somebody, you can't play the game by their rules. It's basic Sun Tzu. Never fight on ground prepared by your enemy. Like, this is not terribly difficult.
Or like how Muhammad Ali fought Sonny Liston in his first fight. He didn't play by Sonny Liston's rules or by anybody's boxing rules. He danced.
Right.
Okay.
He did. Yeah, exactly.
Tom, we've been talking for almost an hour now. Anything you want to say before we finish up?
Not really. I think we covered a lot of it. I mean, at the end of the day, like, the thing I want to remind everybody about is that if you think that Trump did the normal, gig of what am I trying to say? The normal gig here of doing the regime change operation, look into the Bush angle on Venezuela, on Florida, and all of that, and then talk to me. Okay. Yeah. So, but I got to run because Siri's screaming at me that I got to make a turn. So it's about that time.
Tom, thank you so much for doing this while you're on the road. Really, really appreciate it. You and I will speak again in a week's time with Susan and Alex, and then again with Garland.
Yes.
Nixon, and then many, many others, no doubt. And I'll have all the links in the description below. Tom, thank you so much. All the best.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.